Greetings, friends, fellow citizens, fellow patriots. Happy New Year to you, and welcome to this week's edition of the We the People Convention weekly news and opinion podcast on another historic day for the United States and the world as we live in Trump time. So our friend Ralph texted me at 6 a.m. and said, President Trump sure loves to mess with the podcast. And our friend Adam texted me at 3 a.m. to talk to us about what just happened in Venezuela, which we'll get to right at the start of the podcast here. But first, I just want to wish all of you a very happy New Year. I hope you had a great holiday. You've had a great Christmas and New Year's as the weekend continues. The never-ending holiday continues. I think many of us found ourselves this week wondering what the heck we're supposed to be doing as there just were so many days in between the holidays to do things, but not many things. It's been frigid cold here in Northeast Ohio, and I know many of you have suffered some snows and the West Coast rain and all that, but I just hope that didn't interfere with your celebration of this holiday season and your expectations for 2026, which we're going to cover in depth. If you're new to this podcast, welcome to you. You are here to learn about the news that affects you. We are here to protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And we're not just here to inform you, we're here to take action. And I will be asking you to take action in this podcast because being in a representative republic is not a spectator sport. Okay, it's a participatory sport, and that's what we're going to do here. So welcome to all of you. We want to shout out to all of our donors for the last 16 years who have funded this podcast, who funded our website, our social media, our text messages, our emails, our donations to other groups. God bless all of you. Thank you. And if you have the ability to help us, to keep us going, particularly in what's going to be the biggest year of all, this 2026 fight to finally defeat the communists and the forces of evil that have infiltrated our nation, please go to wethepeopleconvention.org, click on the donate button right on the front page, and give what you can, because I guarantee you we'll make good use of your money. And if you're new to this podcast, or even if you've been watching for a while but you really aren't clear on our history, at wethepeopleconvention.org, there's a button you can click that will tell you about who we are and what we've accomplished. And if you're a member of this organization, you should be very proud, because we have punched way above our weight and we have accomplished some amazing things. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to do a lot more this year together. You and I together, we are going to fight the fight like we've never fought the fight before, with the goal of what? Completely destroying the Marxist, Communist, Socialist, Democrat Party and all their Marxist, members. We want them to go the way of the Whigs. We are not just here to hold the House and the Senate. We are here to crush them everywhere we can. And that's the attitude you have to have. So buckle up, kids, because it's going to be a heck of a year. And boy, it's starting off in total Donald Trump fashion. And here's the news. It's breaking right as we're doing this podcast on January 3rd, 2026, on Saturday morning. President Trump's going to have a press conference while this podcast is being recorded. But here's what's going on.
Breaking just now, Maduro, the president says, has been captured. Nicolas Maduro, president of Venezuela, has been captured, says President Trump. There will be a news conference at Mar-a-Lago on this at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Let me read you the full statement from the president. Quote, "The United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with the U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow. There will be a news conference today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump."
Whoa. And as you may have picked up during the week, and we were going to cover it in this podcast, but now it's not relevant. But, the escalation against Maduro and the drug cartels, in Venezuela, just kept getting ratcheted up until earlier this week, the CIA did this first strike on land in Venezuela. They blew up a warehouse at a port in Venezuela, and now this. And here's the bottom line, folks. This is what America first means. All right. And there's precedent for this. The people are going to be the Democrats and the idiot, in the bag, media who hate America. They're going to say, Trump did this unauthorized. This is illegal. He can't do this. Yeah, well, we did it against a guy named in Nicaragua when we brought in Noriega from Nicaragua 37 years ago. The indictment of Noriega looks exactly like the indictment of Maduro and his wife. These people are running a criminal drug cartel that is killing American people, particularly young people, and has been for years, okay? And when people are asking questions about this, here's the question you need to ask. How come no other president ever did this? How come all these years? You think Maduro and Venezuela have only been doing it since Trump became president? They've been doing this for decades. Obama did nothing. Biden did nothing. The Republicans and the Democrats in the House and the Senate stopped Trump in his first term from doing these type of things. This is what leadership is. We have every right to do this. And, under the law, I'm not talking about, our opinion. Under the law, this is well settled. So anybody who questions this as illegal is full of crap, and you should say, you're full of crap. And you should say to them, so why did no one else in our government, in the House, in the Senate, in the Defense Department, in the CIA, in the presidential office, why have none of them before Trump cared enough about our kids to fight for them? That's the real question. And now, this is just how Trump does it. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, guess who was in Venezuela when this happened? The Chinese. The Chinese sent over one of their top envoys to show they supported Maduro, and Trump went in and captured Maduro and his wife, and they will go on trial in New York City for their crimes, and they will be convicted, and they will be in a federal U.S. prison for years. Does this remind you of anything? Think back a little bit in Trump's first term. Remember when Trump had Xi, China's prime minister, at Mar-a-Lago, and they were eating, and Trump took out Soleimani, and he turned to Xi and told him what he did? Think that ain't a message to China? How about Iran? We're going to cover that in the second half of the podcast and what's going on in Iran. What about Mexico and Colombia and these other drug cartel run countries, these narco states? What do you think the message is to them today? Yeah, the message is Trump is serious as a heart attack, and you better listen up. He gave Maduro chances to leave, and he wouldn't leave. Yeah, FAFO. That's what just happened today. You should be proud and go to the webpage, whitehouse.gov, and make a comment and say, President Trump, thank you. That a boy. Good job. That's what we want to do. Okay? So, what I was going to lead off our podcast with before this breaking news was the 250th anniversary of America. I created this graphic using AI and some of my own, efforts. And I said, we the people are celebrating 1776 to 2026, the 250th anniversary of America. And you see, the feather like signing the Constitution and the locomotive and the atom bomb and Wright brothers plane and a computer and landing on the moon. And just I tried to share that. I'm not happy with this graphic yet. I'm going to probably do a different one, but I put that out for you on New Year's Day with links to the page, and you can find this at wethepeopleconvention.org. There's a link to the Freedom 250 page, which has all the things. And I talked about it last week, and it has all the events that President Trump is going to do and that the government is going to do around the nation in all 50 states to celebrate our anniversary. But I got a challenge for you all. I really do. And I've been thinking about this. And I'll tell you right now, I had not given until right before the New Year's, and I started to see, I don't know if you saw the Washington Monument lit up. That's also linked on that story at wethepeopleconvention.org, where they did this amazing thing like for 4 hours, and it's going until January 6th in Washington. So if you're in that general area, it'd be worth taking the kids and driving in. But they are projecting historic images on the Washington Monument, and it's cool as hell. Really cool. So if you didn't see that, go to wethepeopleconvention.org and click on the 250th anniversary story, and the links are there for you to watch that video. But here's the thing. This is our 250th anniversary. Your and my 250th anniversary. And as I said about being in a representative republic is not a spectator sport, it's participatory. Well, guess what? It's our 250th anniversary. So my challenge to you and to our organization is, how are we going to celebrate? What are we going to do? We're not going to just sit back and let President Trump entertain us. No. I want you to start thinking about what you're going to do in your community. I don't care if you live in the most rural town with 100 residents, or you live in a major city like Dallas or Minneapolis or Florida, down in Florida somewhere. What are you going to do to celebrate our 250th anniversary? And I was talking to a friend of mine about it, and I said, think about all the things that happened in your township, in your county, in your city, in your state in the last 250 years. There is so much to celebrate. It's unbelievable. I'll give you a perfect example. I'm flipping through between the football games on New Year's Day, and I came across on YouTube a documentary about Stan Hewitt Hall in Akron. Some of you may know that name. It's a very historic building that the founder of Goodyear, the Cyberling families, built in Akron, Ohio. And we've been there many times. If you're ever in this area, you should go see it. It's an amazing building. But in that story, I didn't remember that they have these little side buildings, these little cottages that are on the property where some of the Cyberlings' children and grandchildren stayed on occasion. And in one of these houses, the guy who founded Alcoholics Anonymous came and met with one of the Cyberlings' granddaughters, and then she brought in this doctor from Akron who had been suffering from alcoholism, and they were supposed to have a 2-hour meeting in this cottage, and they talked for 12 hours, and the results was the founding of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And every year, thousands of people come on the anniversary of their founding to the house where it was founded in Akron, Ohio. How many people in Akron, Ohio know that story? That's what the 250th anniversary is about. How many stories like that are in your community? And what are you going to do to tell the story? Because what is the opportunity here? The opportunity here is to bring us together. To bring us together talking about good things, positive things, things that we can all be proud of. One of the biggest problems we've had, and one of the things the left has done, particularly starting with Barack Obama, was they took our national mentality from being proud Americans and having a positive attitude about America, and they made all of our self-talk negative. We're racist. We're bigots. We're just the most horrible people. And America sucks and all the rest of the world is great, except that's an absolute total lie. And I learned there was a guy named Brian Tracy who did these, he's like Tony Robbins, but he's older. And I listened to his tapes. My father gave them to me to help me start our businesses and run my life. because he talked about positive self-talk. What we have the opportunity to do this year and what you and I must do this year, we must create positive self-talk about America, because you can't achieve anything in this world if you get up every day and say, I suck, the world sucks, the world's against me, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. That's scientific. That's psychologically proven. But you can do anything when you get up in the morning and say, thank you, God, for this day. I'm going to make the best of it. No matter what the obstacles, I'm going to achieve things. I'm going to do good things. And when you start talking about all the people in your community over 250 years who did those good things, when you go back and look, at the Revolutionary War and the Civil War and World War I and World War II and all the heroes who grew up in your community, and remember their names and their faces. When you look at all the inventions, all the industries that started in your community, and start talking about it, how we changed the world. Wow, America's going to be a different place by the end of 2026, won't it be? And you put with that not only this positive attitude and this research into goodness, right? You throw in higher paychecks, more jobs, better tax returns, checks, refund checks, a growing economy. Wow, that's Make America Great Again. I'm challenging all of you right now to start thinking about what you're going to do and be ready for July 4th when it really, it kicks off. And I want you to write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org, info@wethepeopleconvention.org, and start telling me about what's going on in your community, because I'm going to share it on our podcast throughout the year. We, the people, right? In this graphic I said, we, the people, are celebrating 1776 to 2026, the 250th anniversary. Not just Donald Trump. No, we, the people, you and I are going to celebrate this with Donald Trump and make it way bigger and way better. You like that? Good idea? You with me? Let me know. info@wethepeopleconvention.org. I'm so fired up. We're going to turn our country around by celebrating our 250th anniversary and all the accomplishments we had during it. Okay? So now I said, Happy New Year. And I think that there's reason for optimism. So I put a few stories out on the website that you may have missed. I know during the holidays, you're busy. I was sending out some texts and some emails. And honestly, I got quite a few people, watching it. I was pretty impressed with that, okay? But this story, I think, is a good one to kind of give you a broader perspective. This is why the 2026 economy should be good for you and America. And it says 5 reasons to be optimistic about the 2026 economy. 1 year ago, businesses, especially CEOs, were optimistic about the U.S. economy in 2025, expecting lower taxes and more market-friendly policies from incoming President Donald Trump. Then came April 2nd, Liberation Day. The markets fell. That's when Trump announced all the tariffs. The markets fell, uncertainty rose, and affordability became a more acute concern. Meanwhile, the labor market continued to weaken as immigration restrictions led to slower growing workforce and labor shortages in some sectors. Nonetheless, the U.S. economy persisted. As the end of the year approached, the market is up more than 15%. The GDP growth in the third quarter is an unexpectedly robust 4.3%. What will 2026 be like, right? And so I covered some of that, the GDP and things last week, but these are 5 things that will make a difference to you. Consumers will have more money. The Treasury Secretary Scott Bassett said he expects Americans to receive the $150 billion in tax refunds early next year as a result of the big, beautiful bill signed last month. Okay? Trump also says he will send 2,000 checks to most households next year to assuage affordability concerns. I don't like that idea, but the bottom line is you're going to have more money from tax returns and from higher paychecks. All right? Businesses will have more money. Another provision of that big, beautiful bill is that corporations can deduct, get this, 100% of equipment purchases in a year they spend the money. There is evidence that a similar rule, as well as corporate tax cuts, boosted investments by 11% and GDP by almost 1% after a similar law in 2017. This is a big deal. If they can write off their capital expenditures for businesses in the year that they do it, that makes more money left over for them to market and to hire employees and to grow their business. Interest rates will be lower. Whether Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell will make further cuts is uncertain, but the new Federal Reserve Chair that Trump will appoint will, I guarantee you, cut interest rates by probably at least a full point this year. That will help. Energy could be much cheaper. The CBO predicts that tax provisions that encourage more production of oil and gas will also have positive impact on the GDP this year. Gas prices are way down. Now, that helps every bit of the economy because oil is for plastics, is for pharmaceuticals. Oil is for everything. Gas is for farmers. It gets cheaper if the gas prices go down. Transportation, the goods to the market gets cheaper. And then finally, there's more certainty on tariffs. With all the fear-mongering about tariffs, it's a tax on the people and prices are going to go up. Trump said that's not going to happen, and it didn't. It didn't. Now people kind of understand. You know what? Some things went up, some things didn't. But you know what also happened? Lots of manufacturing moving here, lots of jobs, trillions of dollars of investments because Trump used tariffs in the right ways. Not just to tariff countries to bring more money into us, but to tariff countries so that their companies would move here because we could not become great again unless we become self-sufficient again. And that's what Trump is doing, and people finally get it. And that's why you should be optimistic about 2026. I thought it was important to look back at 2025. And so this article I put up during the holiday, how did Trump do in 2025 on his 2024 campaign promises? And this was an article from the Associated Press, and it's got a real interesting format. It's kind of like a spreadsheet type thing where basically they go through all the promises Trump made on declassifying information like the Epstein files, on education, getting rid of the education part, on energy, terminating the stupid laws about mileage that Biden and those guys tried to do to crush gasoline engines, making it easier to drill, opening up places that were off limits, foreign policy. He's ended 8 wars, okay? And he's working. Zelensky was here. They're working on Ukraine. That's going to happen. He's going to solve that. What happened with cutting government employees? What happened with health care? What happened with immigration? And if you go to this page on our website at wethepeopleconvention.org, you'll see that, they say he kept his promise or it's in progress. And then there's links to all of it. So if you're interested in any of that, this is a really useful page because basically every part of it is a link to a story that tells you what really happened. Bottom line is, no president in history has ever done more to keep their promises than Donald Trump. And isn't that what you vote for? Isn't that what it's all about? The question is, why don't these other people do that? Yeah, because they really don't care. They really don't care, and Donald Trump does. And I talked about the decline in employees. This is a chart that I came across, and federal employment is down. You can see this curve. The sharp decline is a result of President Trump's efforts, initially spearheaded by Elon Musk's Doge, to drastically reduce the size of federal government. In January 2025, a year ago, there were more than 3 million federal workers. This year, in January, there's 2.75. 250,000 federal workers are gone. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Okay? But it's a start. Hopefully it will continue. But the problem is, most of those 250, they actually left. Trump didn't fire them. And we're quite frankly, I want to see way more than this. Because as you'll see as this podcast continues, our problems are way too much government. Way too much government. And we've got to make it smaller. And the only way to get it smaller is to cut spending, which means cut workers and cut departments, okay? And hopefully that's coming. Net, Trump's approval ratings are above 50%. That's a pretty amazing achievement when all the left wing does is criticize everything he does. Trump's at 40.2% approve and 44.6% disapprove, with 5.2% saying they don't know. Okay? In today's world, that's amazing, because you go back in history and you'll just see every president is always in the 40s, because nobody can agree on everything, but everybody just wants what they want. They're not objective. So that's a pretty good sign. The other things that you've got to be aware of is that the stuff that Trump did this year was not just executive orders. We made some big changes, but mostly in the courts. This is our problem with Congress, right? And we're going to have a lot to say about Congress in this podcast, and you're going to have a lot to say to your senators and congressmen by the time this podcast is over. I assure you of that. But he did a lot of this through the courts, and this is a brilliant strategy that came out of the 4 years in the wilderness with Stephen Miller and Project 2025 and the people at Heritage that they came up with that really has made a difference. Why these 7 most significant legal matters of 2025 will have long-standing impact. So, yes, we need legislation to be passed so that, it continues beyond Trump, and we'll see if that happens. But these court rulings do matter, and they will last. This year, the court was jam-packed with consequential legal rulings likely to have long-lasting impacts on matters such as parental rights and religious liberty. Here are 7 things. Fate of anti-Trump lawfare cases. In late 2024, the Justice Department dropped Special Counsel Jack Smith's case against then-President-elect Trump. That was a big step towards getting rid of the lawfare. Almost a year into the second term, in late November, Georgia Judge Scott McAfee agreed to dismiss the racketeering conspiracy bullcrap case against Trump in Georgia. That's gone. In August, New York Appeals Court tossed out the $550 million civil fraud judgment against Trump that New York Attorney Letitia James had won against Trump, valuing his property illegally. That was bullcrap. That was totally bogus. It's gone. One case remains live. Trump's appeal of 2024 criminal convictions emerging from the alleged hush money to former porn star Stormy Daniels. New York Judge Juan Merchan sentenced Trump to unconditional discharge, meaning no jail time or fine. However, Trump has appealed the guilty verdict to clear his name, and they're slow walking that in New York. He's going to be cleared of that. That was bogus as well. But yet, on the left, one of our friends sent me a text that she got from someone calling Trump Convict 47. He wasn't a convict. He's never been convicted. Anyone who uses that with you, is a liar, and you should call them out, and you can share the story with them. On to the other Supreme Court or other court decisions. Loss for trans agenda for minors. In June, the Supreme Court by a 6-3 vote upheld state bans on sex changes for minors. The court determined that Tennessee, one of the 20 states that have similar bans, did not violate the 14th Amendment's equal protection clauses. That was the beginning of the end of trans. No trans surgeries, no trans indoctrination. It's dying. It's near death, and you're going to kill it anywhere you see it. It's a lie, and it's immoral, and it's disgusting. Opting for parental rights. This is a big decision. The High Court ruled 6-3 in favor of Maryland parents who wanted to opt their children out of exposure to school books with explicit LGBTQ plus content. That was a big decision because courts were literally saying, the parents have no rights. You have no rights to say your kid, not only to say you shouldn't have this garbage in your school, which you pay for with your tax dollars, but you shouldn't even have the right to say, I don't want you to let my child attend this indoctrination. Seriously, courts were saying, the school can decide. Well, the Supreme Court said, no, they can't. Big deal. Rolling back nationwide injunctions. The Supreme Court's 6-3 decision narrowing the scope of nationwide injunctions for federal judges was likely the most consequential decision this year, according to Thomas Berry, director of the Robert A. Levy Center for Constitutional Studies at the Cato Institute. Under the old president, a single district judge court court judge can determine something is unconstitutional and strike it down for the entire nation. Now they can't do that. They can't do that. Big deal. These little dictators lost a lot of their power. State porn laws on age verification. This is a big deal for us. The Supreme Court upheld a Texas law requiring pornographic websites to review viewers' ages and make sure they are over the age of 18. The Free Speech Coalition versus Paxton, a porn industry trade group, sued Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, and they lost. They lost. That's a big decision. Unanimous decision on establishment costs. In a 9-0 ruling, the High Court reversed the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruling on the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, running for the court, asserted that Wisconsin requires employers to contribute to the state's unemployment compensation program, but it exempts various entities, including religious ones, and they reversed that to treat everyone equally. And this last one, discrimination and majority groups. Folks, this is big. I made it big when I announced it. A lot of you didn't get it, how big it was. This was historic to me because this is where we went wrong. We went wrong when there wasn't equal justice under the law for all. We went wrong when Eric Holder under Obama said, oh no, the Justice Department doesn't defend whites, only minorities. Whites have no rights. That's what he said. That's what he did. They just fixed it. In another unanimous ruling, the court determined someone who belongs to a majority group can sue for discrimination. In Marlene Ames versus Ohio Department of Youth Services, the High Court rejected background circumstances rule recognized by the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which restricts protections for members of majority groups. The bottom line is they decided that even if you're in the majority, you can't be discriminated against. What a concept. Finally, they fixed it. Those are big deals, folks. Those are not small deals. And you need to know those things. That article will be linked on our podcast page. And then one last thing that's really important this year. The Supreme Court could give Republicans a good shot at keeping the House in 2026, and these Dems are in the hot seat. This article actually focuses on the various Dems who could be redistricted out of their seats, okay? But the bottom line is, by some estimates, the GOP could pick up 9 or more congressional seats if the High Court strikes down race-based districts. That looks likely as a majority of conservative justices indicated they opposed the civil rights era restriction during oral arguments 2 months ago. It's potentially really important for 2026, said, Sabato's crystal ball, the University of Virginia Center told the New York Post. At issue is Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which bans any law or map that results in a denial of rights to vote on account of race or color. In practice, the law has been used to create majority-minority congressional districts that favor Democrats, especially in Republican majority states with large black populations, right? So in Ohio, we're red all over the place, but we have these districts in Cleveland and Cincinnati and Columbus that are district only for racial reasons, only to give blacks seats. But the court's going to rule that's wrong. That's racist. It's discriminatory against the majority. If it comes and it completely, in practice, the law used to create majority-minority districts. If it comes and it completely changes our understanding of Section 2 and doesn't protect these districts anymore, you could have a significant impact, particularly in the South and in other red states. So that's coming. That's no small deal. That's a big deal. The big deal this week, which I'm sure you were consumed with because it just was everywhere, and it should be everywhere. And even now, the scope of it is not clear. So I'm going to try to expand your view of what's really going on because it's way bigger than Somali fraud, all right? But let's start with that. YouTube reporter embarrasses mainstream media over Minnesota Somali fraud story. That's what we posted at WeThePeopleConvention.org. What Nick Shirley's Minnesota fraud story says about legacy media and government. Nick Shirley's 42-minute YouTube video on daycare fraud in Minnesota is shocking, not just because of the scale of the abuse he uncovered in that day, in just one day. It's shocking because it took a young kid to expose this years-long scheme. Where was the mainstream media in this all the time? So this one kid goes to Minneapolis and spends one day and exposes more fraud than all the media has in like 25 years. In the must-see video, Shirley teams up with a citizen investigator and goes door-to-door visiting various daycare facilities in Minneapolis that pocketed millions in taxpayer money through a child care assistance program. And here's a look at that video, which many of you should have seen. It's on our page. You can watch it at WeThePeopleConvention.org. He says, here is the full 42 minutes of my crew and I exposing Minnesota fraud. This may be my most important work yet. We uncovered over $110 million in one day. Like it and share it around. It's time to hold these corrupt politicians and fraudsters accountable. Okay? Well, man, it just caught fire. He had 90 million views. It's up over 100 million views on X now. Okay? And if you go to that story, you'll see all kinds of things of not just Minnesota. It then spread into places like Ohio. All right? And so if you go to that page, it'll talk about Minnesota, and then it'll talk about Ohio, and then Maine. Here's a story from Ohio, which is going to get bigger this week, I guarantee you. Breaking: over 40 daycare centers in Columbus, Ohio, open up using the same defunct Somali shell company on the same day and collected $14 million in subsidies in 2024 alone. Just cut off the subsidies altogether. It's out of control. And you can see that story, and they show you one after another. It was June 11th of 2024. They all signed up. They all got approved. And it's a fraudulent address, and they got $14 million. So Republicans, well, Mike DeWine's never been a Republican. He just runs as one. He's a Democrat. But Republicans like our auditor and our treasurer, Sprague and Faber, the treasurer writes the checks. The treasurer is the one responsible for looking into whether you should get the money or not. And they made a big thing in Ohio, by the way. In Minnesota, the way their law was set up is you get the federal money for your daycare if you show proof of enrollment. So in that 42-minute video, they talked about how you would see all these Somali people come and register at the daycare and then take their kids home because Minnesota paid them on registrations. Ohio pays you on attendance. And so they're supposed to prove that people butts were in the seat before you get the money. We're going to see if that's true or not, because how good are these audits? And the answer is not very good. Not very good. Now, you need to be outraged. And I was going to talk about that, but this Batya woman, who's really making a big impression in media now, she now works for News Nation. She put this video out, and I just think it encapsulates why you should be insanely upset, crazy mad about what's going on. She captures it. Watch this.
Scandal is totally appalling, but it is also unsurprising, and that's because it's a microcosm of what ails the Democratic elites. That's our Why It Matters segment for the night. The latest revelations join others in which suspected Somali fraudsters stole more than $9 billion in federal funds from 14 state-run agencies dating back to 2018. Somali Americans make up 89% of the defendants charged. The absolute scale of the fraud just beggars belief. Where were the spot checks? Where were the officials? It seems totally impossible that the Democratic leadership was not somehow in on this. Just think about how outrageous this is. You are wondering whether you can afford to have another child because childcare is so expensive. Meanwhile, a group of Somalis in Minnesota got $110 million for childcare centers that don't exist. You can't afford to buy a home, but 100 Somalis spent millions on luxury properties, millions of your taxpayer dollars. You're paying $30,000 a year for terrible health care, and they got millions for healthcare centers that they never opened for patients that they never serviced. But the fraud is a microcosm of an illness that plagues our political elites, especially on the left. More broadly, everybody comes before you. For decades, the Democrats have pushed for mass migration, both legal and illegal, which drove down the wages of working class Americans while making competition for housing, healthcare, and an education, the hallmarks of the American dream, even fiercer. And if you objected, if you had the audacity to ask why your children were being disinherited in your country, the Democratic elites called you racist. Leftist American elites developed an entire woke vocabulary as a smokescreen to mask the mass pillaging of the American working class. They smeared hardworking people who work 10 times harder than they do, by the way, and make a fraction as much. When those working class Americans objected to having their jobs sent overseas and those jobs that remained here degraded by a glut of cheap labor. Millionaires on cable news called you racist if you said, wait a minute, why don't my kids matter? That's why people are so angry about the Somali fraud case. It is the epitome of the fraud perpetrated on the American people through the collusion of the Democratic Party, the liberal media, and people willing to take advantage of the immense generosity of the American people and then spit in our faces.
And then spit in our faces. I thought that video was good. I will link that. You can share that. It's on our X, Tom Z WTPC, x.com, Tom Z WPCC. Share that with everyone. It says it all. Listen to what she said, right? Those of us of my age, those of you who are old like us, who lived through the elites and the governing class of our country saying, hey, let's just take all those manufacturing jobs in Ohio and in the Midwest and all over this country and ship them to China to destroy your life, right? And destroyed our steel mills and everything. They shipped our jobs away. Oh, that wasn't good enough. No, that wasn't good enough. Now, the commies in the Biden administration, commie Obama, what did they do? After they shipped their jobs away, what stinking, crappy service jobs that were left, they then imported illegals to take your jobs again. This is unbelievable. The ruling class hates you, hates America, hates us. And they have basically said to us, keep working harder, keep working harder. We are the most productive people in the history of the world. Our GDP is bigger than China's by a lot, almost a third more, and we have a third of the people. That means you and I are working our asses off. And they kept saying, keep working harder, keep working harder. And the taxes went up and up and up, and now it's over 50%. We're slaves to these damn people. It's a whole of government problem. They don't care. They think they can steal your money and give it away to whoever the hell they want. No one's watching the door. And it's got to stop. And you've got to go nuts on your congressman. We need cuts. Folks, we said this at the start of this year. You could cut the federal government by 40% and not notice the difference. Because as she said, well, your kids, my kids, are paying $30,000 for daycare. These damn Somalis are getting it from you. They're getting their houses, their medical paid for, not just Somalis. This isn't just about Somali daycare fraud. This is about New York State Medicaid fraud. This is California, the homeless fraud. They're stealing us blind. There was a thing on X that talked about it's like $1.4 trillion of the $6 trillion a year we spend is fraud. How much has your congressman cut? There's a budget bill coming out at the end of January. You've got to go crazy. No more excuses, damn you. No more excuses. It's disgraceful. Don't tell me you can't cut. This stuff is being stolen. You're not even helping the people need to help. That's a small fraction of the people need to help. And I'm going to prove some more of it. And again, when she said it's all in Maine and everywhere, look at this. Ilhan Omar, right? Who says she's from Somalia. She supports Somalia. She says she wants to go back to Somalia. She's in Congress. Her hubby's firm, $30 million firm, quietly scrubs names from website as squad member faces mounting questions on sudden wealth amid Minnesota welfare fraud. You think she should have some questions? Embattled Representative Ilhan Omar's husband's venture capital firm quietly scrubbed key officers' details from their website. Omar went from nearly broke to being worth $30 million in just a year. Shazam! You think they earned that, or do you think they stole that? As a massive up to $9 billion fraud scheme involving Somali community in her district unfolded right under her nose. Close to 90 people have been charged so far, including at least 3 with direct ties to Omar. Okay? You think she didn't get any of the money they stole? Is she going to be prosecuted? Is she going to be thrown out of Congress? Is she going to be frickin' deported? Is their $30 million going to be confiscated? It was Somalia-born Omar who was seen in a resurfaced video last month dishing out food in a restaurant, not the heart of the scandal. Who introduced, get this, she introduced the legislation that critics say paved the way for what the feds have called the largest fraud of the pandemic. The Jimmy Cho-wearing socialists introduced the Meals Act in Congress in 2020, relaxing oversight of government-sponsored children's meal programs during the pandemic, which critics say allowed fraudsters to claim they served millions of meals without verification. She instituted laws that got passed in Congress because no congressman could stand being called a racist. You wusses. Shortly after the scheme played out, Omar's husband, political consultant Tim Minette, launched Rose Lake Capital, a venture capital management firm. The company, in 2022, he did this. The company saw its reported value go from nearly zero in 2023 to between 5 and 25 million just a year later. Okay? There's a lot of strange things going on. Paul Kramer, counsel of the National Legal and Policy Center, said she was basically broke when she came in office. Now she's worth $30 million. Oh, nothing to see here. Folks, if we don't see her arrested, if we don't see her deported, you need to riot in the streets. Trump needs to hear from you like he's never heard before. Enough already. I'll talk about that in the next couple stories here. Enough already. Okay? And again, in the story, the main story I put up, where it talked about in Maine, this guy in Maine is doing a great job. He has literally documented that the Democrats in Maine, meaning the governor primarily, created these programs that they gave to the Somalis for this food program that was totally bogus. They then paid some of that money back to her campaign to elect her as governor, and then they went further. They illegally signed up Somalis to vote, and they ballot harvested to elect her. It's a complete circle. Look at this story in Minnesota. This is nuts. Minnesota lets voters vouch for up to 8 others as fraud scandal fuels calls for a federal crackdown. Let's see. Fresh attention is being drawn to Minnesota election policy that allows a registered voter to vouch for up to 8 people seeking same-day registration. The scrutiny comes as the Walz administration confronts hundreds of millions of dollars lost to social service fraud tied to the state's Somali immigrant community. Critics point to a further wrinkle in Minnesota state law, signed by Governor Tim Walz in 2023. Oh, what a funny thing that he signed this. That provided for driver's licenses for all, regardless of immigration status. The policy also stipulates that the licenses carry no markings indicating citizenship, even though such IDs are commonly used to register to vote. Isn't that convenient, Tim Walz? Shouldn't you be arrested for that? Under Minnesota law, a registered voter can vouch for up to, get this, 8 other voters' residencies who want to sign up for same-day voter registration without ID. So get this, they have same-day voter registration. They have driver's licenses that don't indicate that you're a citizen. And someone who is verified as a citizen can say, oh yeah, these are my brothers. They live in the same house. They're citizens too. And they get the vote. This is also happening in like other blue states. This is how they win. They haven't won elections. They've stolen every freaking election in your lifetime. That's a fact. They've been cheating for 50 years this way. That ends this year. That ends this year. This is insane. You should be angry. You should fight like hell. You should be all over your state reps, your governors, your House and Senate members. This stuff has to stop. And if I haven't driven home enough, this is a whole of government program. Our entire government, state, local, and federal, is a criminal enterprise. They don't represent you at all. They don't care about you at all. Listen to David Sachs.
Sachs, a year from now, what will happen in relation to what we've seen in Minnesota?
Well, I hope that there will be a serious investigation. I hope that there will be indictments. I hope there will be deportations, hopefully massive amounts of deportations. And I hope there'll be impeachments of some of these officials who let the fraud happen.
Ooh,
so
love it.
The country is being eaten alive, it feels like, by fraud. Government funds are being stolen. Votes are being stolen. I believe elections are being stolen. And it all comes from the fact that the party of government doesn't really care where the money goes. It's all just patronage to them, whether it's to Somali daycares or whether it's to this high-speed rail line that doesn't have one piece of track laid. I mean, how much has California wasted on that?
Yeah.
Or $24 billion to the homelessness, only to see the homeless population increase. Look, these politicians don't care how the money is spent at all. All they care about is rewarding their supporters. That's the whole game. And then those supporters round trip a portion of the ill-gotten gains they've gotten from the government back to those politicians. That's the whole game.
That's the whole game. That's the whole game. That game has to end. That game has to end. How about if we push Congress for a rule that says once you're elected to office, you must give back your party status. You represent America, not the Republican Party, not the Democrat Party, not the frickin' Communist Party, not the damn commie Chinese. You represent us. Ladies and gentlemen, I've said this to you for years. There is no one in government representing you. No one but Donald Trump. That's just the truth. We've got to change that. You've got to get angry. You've got to make it clear to our representatives they ain't even coming close to doing their damn job. You need to make that clear to your city council, your mayor, your police department, your township trustees, your fire department. They're not representing you. They're using you. They're taking advantage of you. They're stealing from the public coffers. We got to quit being nice because they're not being nice. They're not being nice. They're hurting us. We need to hurt the people who hurt us by taking their money away. And so I'll wrap up the first half of the podcast by just making it clear. They got her. FBI caught Hillary Clinton taking donations from foreign felon on tape, right? Just like Sachs said, the government's just falling apart. As Hillary Clinton closed in on a presidential nomination in the spring of 2026, FBI field officers advised colleagues at headquarters in D.C. to press her on her foreign donations flowing to the Clinton Foundation while she steered American foreign policy. She's a Secretary of State. She has an illegal email server in their Clinton Foundation. Foreign governments are stealing our Secretary of State's communication between and with Barack Obama. They are giving hundreds of millions of dollars to her foundation to buy privilege in our country. Treason, unmitigated treason. They caught her on tape. They did nothing. They did nothing. But the FBI headquarters in Washington, City, which the former Secretary of State and First Lady wields enormous influence, let the trail go cold. FBI New York Assistant Director in charge, Diego Rodriguez, advised agents in Washington to ask Clinton several questions about the foundation, which are reproduced in full in documents released by the Senate Judiciary Committee just now, but the FBI and filed by the FBI on December 15th. The questions reveal the concerns about foreign robbery that the Clinton Foundation case, codenamed Cracked Foundation, had uncovered. Among the evidence available to investigators, according to their questions, a recorded conversation between Clinton and Indian, as in India, hotel magnate Sang Singh Chatwal, in which Clinton discussed donations to her foundation and her remaining 2008 campaign debt. They stole billions. The FBI and the DOJ did nothing. They need to be charged. They need to be charged. So this story may be the most important story I posted. It didn't get a lot of coverage. AG Bondi says DOJ is looking into charge Obama-Biden actors with ongoing criminal conspiracy. Attorney General Pam Bondi told Just the News that she has asked prosecutors to investigate the Obama-Biden era of lawfare as an ongoing election meddling conspiracy that protected Democrats from criminal investigation and infringed the civil rights of Republicans like President Donald Trump and his supporters. Recovering from eye surgery, which I didn't know about, we wish her the best in full recovery, Bondi made the revelation in written answers Sunday to questions submitted by Just the News. Signaling she agreed with FBI Director Kash Patel, who earlier this year penned a memo predicting an investigation looking at the weaponization of intelligence and law enforcement powers dating to the Russia collusion cases as an ongoing conspiracy and therefore not subject to the statute of limitation. Donald Trump sent her, and you'll see it in this story, a very, very powerful Truth Social thing. Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time. All talk, no action. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Schiff, Letitia James? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. Then we almost put in a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past. A woke rhino who was never going to do his job to prosecute anyone. That's why two of the worst Dem senators pushed him so hard. He even lied to the media and said he quit and that we had no case. No, I fired him. And there is a great case and many layers, and legal pundits say so. Lindsey is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. There were impeachments. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. President Donald J. Trump. That's what he wrote to Pam Bondi. Okay? And Bondi said that the evidence lay out the predicate for a conspiracy case. Bondi did not identify where prosecutors are conducting the investigation, but officials told Just the News a large part of the probe is being done in Florida because they got to get out of D.C. or we can't get a real trial. The evidence illustrates that the FBI shielded political figures like Hunter Biden and Hillary Clinton while pursuing conservatives for their beliefs using legal processes and operations that were excessive instead of protecting Americans and following the law. They went so far as to serve search warrants that their own department and law enforcement officials believed were excessive. We talked about Mar-a-Lago. They said you can't raid Mar-a-Lago. They did it anyway. The Department of Justice takes government weaponization seriously. That means protecting civil liberties, preventing election interference, and holding bad actors accountable. She said, no one is above the law, even if they think they are. 2026 must be the year that we see these prosecutions, or they're never going to happen. And we're going to lose because our people will lose faith in Trump and Bondi and all the rest. Even if Trump has to fire Bondi to get it done, it needs to get done. Okay? So that was a pretty intense first half of the show. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you will share some of the things I said. I hope that you will get on your congressman about the fraud in the government. I hope that you will write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org about your 250th birthday plans and start planning. We've got lots more in the second half of the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the first half. I hope you're having a happy new year. We'll be back after this short break. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. The We the People Convention news and opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button. And if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. If you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. What, something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. If you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. And it's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share, this, whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like, and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People Convention site, and that you get more people to look at it, because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others. Thanks a lot. All right, and we're back for the second half of the podcast. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing the podcast. In that video, I say we're not on X or Facebook anymore. We're back on X, Tom Z WTPC. We're on Facebook. We're on We the People Convention. We're on YouTube. We're on Rumble. We're not on Rumble. Yeah, we're on Rumble at Tom Z WTPC, Gab, Getter, just about everywhere except for TikTok. And we'll have a story about TikTok a little later. We got thrown off of TikTok because I was criticizing the Chinese, don't you know? Anyway, thank you for being with us. Thank you for following us. Thanks for sharing our message. Don't forget that we have our chapters player at wethepeopleconvention.org. It takes till Sunday to take the full video, the 2-hour podcast, and break it into chapters. But you can go on Sundays on our page, and every story is broken out on the chapters player, so you can just jump right to that story. Like, I didn't know about this, click, and you go right to it. So you can watch the whole thing end to end, or you can use the chapters player, and then we have links to all the stories, so you can see the actual source documents, right? Because we bring receipts. This is about truth. We're about telling you the truth. If I'm wrong about something, you write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org and tell me why. And if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. We do not lie to each other. We don't lie to our spouses. We don't lie to our children. We don't lie to our friends. We don't lie to anyone we meet. It's about integrity. It's about truth. It's about merit, right? That's what makes America great. Not about lies. Not about, ideology. Facts, truth. That's what we're about. That's what you're here for. We're going to give you a lot of facts and a lot of truth as we go through the second half of the podcast because, man, there's stuff going on. So this starts, the Venezuela thing I covered at the top of the show, right? So that was, in our foreign, policy issue here. And it was really weird to me that 2025 was way more about foreign events than domestic. And I hope that President Trump's going to pivot and it's going to be really about domestic this year because it has to be to win the election. But this foreign stuff is wow. Okay. So Iranian president opens this week but says his country is in full-fledged war with Europe and the U.S. and Israel. Okay. So why did he feel he had to do this? Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said on December 27th that the Iranian regime is in full-scale war with the United States, Europe, and Israel months after his country's nuclear facilities were bombed during a 12-day-long aerial war. He said in an interview released on the website of the country's leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, that the war is worse than the Iranian conflict with Iraq that had began when Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein invaded Iran in 1980 and lasted through a decade. Okay? People forget that Iran and Iraq fought a war. In my opinion, we are at full-fledged war with America. This war is worse than what we had before. It left 1 million casualties on both sides and included reports of chemical weapons and gas attacks. The remarks were made 2 days before President Donald Trump is scheduled to host Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So he makes this comment. Netanyahu comes in and meets with Trump. And you're like, why are we having this meeting? And they say they're talking about, Gaza and stuff, but they're talking about Iranian making their nuclear armaments, building up again. And Trump says, we'll flatten them, right? You build some more nuclear things, we'll just bomb them, right? And then what happens? Well, this is an interesting little story because, remember, there's no coincidences in politics, kids. Head of Iranian central bank resigns amid protests as rails hit record low against the dollar. Rails is the Iranian currency, I guess. The head of Iran's central bank resigned Monday as protests erupted in Tehran and several other cities after the country's currency plummeted to a new record low against the U.S. dollar. The resignation of Mohammed Farzin was reported by state TV as hundreds of traders and shopkeepers rallied in Sadi Street in downtown Tehran, as well as Sush neighborhood near Tehran's main Grand Bazaar. Merchants at the market played a crucial role in the 1979 Islamic Revolution that ousted the monarchy, the Shah, and brought in Islamic power. Oh, interesting. The official IRNA news agency confirmed protest gathering. Witnesses reported similar rallies in other major cities, including Isfahan and central Iran. In some places in Tehran, police fired tear gas to disperse protesters. Witnesses told the Associated Press that traders shut their shops and asked others to do the same. Well, now, Iran's in full-fledged riots. Funny how that works. Think our CIA had anything to do with that? Think Mossad had anything to do with that? Okay? And then this thing comes out, and I'm like, whoa. Now, this is before we go into Venezuela and capture Maduro, right? This is like the day before Trump puts this out. If Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. Thank you for your attention to this matter. What? We'll come to your rescue? What does that mean? What are you talking about? Now, again, Trump is the master, and this is reality. When the Iranian population rose up against the Ayatollah under Obama, he threw him under the bus. He did nothing to help them or to protect them or defend them, and they got crushed. They got murdered. Okay? Trump ain't Obama, but I don't know what he has in mind. I don't know what we can do. We already sanctioned the heck out of them. We already bombed their nuclear plants. But Trump is signaling he wants regime change. That's what we're doing here. And frankly, we'd be better off if the Ayatollah was removed. And because Iran, folks, you don't understand, Iran was highly educated, had great scientists, economists. They were a very prosperous country until the Muslims took over. All right? It would be good for the world. It would be good for the Middle East to get rid of the ideology of everything in our country is to kill Jews. Not very productive. No coincidence. What the heck is going on? And it just keeps on going on. Okay? China encircles Taiwan in record-breaking war games. Okay? So what does China do this week? China is definitely rattling some sabers at Taiwan. On Monday, the Chinese Eastern Theater Command launched a massive training exercise that completely surrounded Taiwan, the whole island, with Chinese ships and aircraft. All of this in the wake of some historic U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. They didn't like the fact that Trump said, we're going to sell Taiwan these air defense systems that would make it harder for China to invade them. That is what, as you might expect, causing some furrowed brows in Taipei. China on Monday launched its largest military exercise ever around Tehran. The drills, known as Justice Mission 25, involve coordinated deployments of ground forces, naval assets, fighter jets, drones, and artillery across 7 maritime zones encircling Taiwan. China's Eastern Theater Command said the exercise included simulated strikes on land and sea targets and rehearsing to blockade Taiwan's main port, a scenario NSA would be central to any attempt to invade the island. So basically, they're practicing what they say they intend to do. They even launched live fire, missiles and shells into Taiwan waters and all that stuff. They're rattling their sabers, right? Taiwan is, of course, no threat whatsoever to China's sovereignty and national unity, except in the sense that China still considers Taiwan to be a breakaway rogue province. Meaning, Taiwan's not saying we're going to invade China and overthrow the communist government. Taiwan just wants to be left alone. So why are they doing this, right? Why is this? They has to bring Taiwan back in. Well, it has to do with a lot more than Taiwan's, politics. And so our friend Rich sent me this video, and I just watched it last night, and then it got up early this morning to post it so you could watch it on our video section. China's rise is over, and this is why, which is why Xi threatens war. You need to go to our video section and watch this, because this professor really does a great job. He's from Tufts University, of explaining to you why China rose in the first place. And it was a weird combination of things, from the death of Mao to their great rise in population, the policy of one child per family, which screwed up their demographics, okay, and basically just made them the only place to go to be able to manufacture things cheap, mostly because of the labor market. Okay, that's over. Their population is collapsing. They're going to lose they're like 1.2 billion people now. They're going to be like 800 million in like 20 years. They're aging and they're going down. He explains this to you, and then he explains why they may go to war because they have no other way to keep power. We have to make sure we stop that. You will find it's only 37 minutes. It is a primer. You will be an expert on China's history and its future in 37 minutes if you watch this video. Thanks, Rich, for giving it to us. Very powerful, great video. Okay? Watch that. It'll explain a lot of things. And hopefully, we're doing enough to make clear to China, you don't want to do this. And maybe the Chinese being in Venezuela, when Trump takes Maduro, sends a message, you think? Maybe? Yeah, it's all connected, kids. It's 4D chess. Trump's no fool. He's brilliant, man. He's brilliant. So, again, we're talking about the Chinese and what they've done to us and how they've invaded us and how they bribed our officials and how, we are where we are because China has been at war with us for 40 years and we have pretended we aren't at war with them until now, okay? Here's another example. Highly coordinated activist network is undermining Trump's plan for energy dominance, report warns. A new report sent to lawmakers across the United States this week warns of radical environmental groups attempting to weaken critical power resources at a time when we need them most. The American Energy Institute CEO Jason Isaac sent a letter and report obtained by the Daily Wire to Republican lawmakers and leaders in Washington, D.C. It's a small, it basically says this coalition has gained outsized influence through billion-dollar activist ecosystems, coordinating national operations and targeted litigation designed to obstruct or delay U.S. energy developments. These efforts strengthen America's rivals by restricting domestic production and limiting our ability to compete on a global stage, says the letter. The 18-page report notes that the coalition of green groups and leftist organizations is influencing U.S. energy policy through its outsized influence on democratic politics and policymaking and through its fervent opposition to the Trump administration's efforts to unleash American energy. Green groups and trained activists are undermining American energy dominance through close relationships with influential Democrats, costly legal challenges, protests, and sometimes outright sabotage of major energy projects. The report lists some of the major players in the effort to restrict fossil fuels: the Union of Concerned Scientists, the Sierra Club, and Greenpeace. They all get funded by China. They all take Chinese money. The green groups have long opposed oil and gas and coal development, and they suffered major setbacks recently in court cases that has the potential to bankrupt Greenpeace in the United States. Earlier this year, a jury in North Dakota found that 3 Greenpeace groups libeled for $670 million in damages over the role they played in a protest against the Dakota Access Pipeline. A judge later reduced the damage to about $345 million, but that's going to put Greenpeace in bankruptcy. The protest took place. Now get this. This is why this is important. The protest took place nearly a decade ago as green groups obstructed progress on the pipeline for roughly a decade. The protest resulted in charges and jail time for some activists, okay? But it took a decade for the law to come into play. You can't have that. You can't have them stopping coal-fired plants anymore. We need all the energy we can get. We are at war, internally and externally. They're funded by the Chi-Coms, okay? That's who the real enemy is. And Trump is on it, but then the TikTok thing I mentioned earlier, he won re-election, he thinks, because of TikTok. Charlie Kirk said Turning Point's biggest influence was on TikTok, and so he's tried to protect it, but it's a tool of the commies. And so Gordon Chang, who I trust on China, and maybe someday I'll be proven wrong for that, he says China TikTok deal great for China, not for America. Because remember, Trump announced after Congress said we're going to ban TikTok, Trump intervened, and now they have this deal where Larry Ellison from Oracle is going to be a big investor in American TikTok and going to take over the technical side. But listen to what Chang says, because it's important. TikTok has posed 2 national security threats. First, TikTok, its owner ByteDance, have repeatedly made promises about the security of personal data of Americans, but they have not honored pledges and have broken U.S. statutes. The company settled charges that it violated U.S. child privacy laws. Second, the Chinese regime uses TikTok or curation or recommended algorithms, which determine the distribution of videos to propagate its narrative as well as spread hate, sow disinformation, glorify self-harm, and promote illicit drugs to Americans. TikTok in China doesn't do any of that. TikTok in the U.S. promotes trans, promotes child pornography, prevents pedophiles, promotes all this stuff. That's supposed to stop. The arrangement of selling TikTok does not adequately eliminate their algorithm problem. Chu stated in his memorandum that the joint venture will be responsible for retaining the content recommendation algorithm on U.S. users' data to ensure the content feed is free from outside manipulation. NPR reporting suggests that China will continue to own and control the algorithm, often referred to as TikTok's secret sauce, and that the new joint venture will simply license it. Can't have it. Can't have it. Shut it off. Get off of TikTok. It's just the enemy, okay? And speaking of commies and enemies, hey, Kami Mandami in New York City. He got sworn in at midnight on Inauguration Day on a Quran, don't you know? Because he's a commie Muslim, both of whom hate the West with everything they've got. And here's just a short clip from his speech after he got sworn in.
We will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism.
Yeah, he got applause from the commie crowd that we're going to replace the frigidity of personal responsibility, right? And we're going to replace it with the warmth of collectivism. What a clown. What a joke. Okay? Yeah, collectivism. Putting nice words around the worst thing could possibly happen. Don't take it from me. Don't take it from me. This is a post from a Russian, a person who is the Russian ambassador to the UN. Even top Putin ally Kirill Dmitriev, who is CEO of Russia's sovereign wealth fund, is dunking on Zohan Mardami. Because after this speech clip that I just played for you was on X, he put out a thing that said, "Dear Comrade Mandani, just a friendly reminder that this has been tried before," meaning in Russia. It failed. Everywhere it's been tried, you morons. And then he responded to this guy who said he was dunking on him. Now get this. This is really interesting for all of you to think about. Look at the bottom part of this. If you can see it on your screen, and you guys who are listening, I'll read it. He said, "Not dunking, just observing. Comrade Mandami is doing a solid job steering the U.S. towards communism. The EU and the UK are already there, which leaves Russia as the bastion not only of traditional values, but of capitalism in this Biden-esque leftist woke world." Whoa, baby. See, you got to hate Putin. You got to hate Russia, right? You got to be for Ukraine and the EU. Russia's the evil ones, except, oh yeah, they're not communist anymore. They got rid of that. Now they're a corrupt, democracy. The votes are rigged for Putin. Don't get me wrong. I'm not praising Russia. But you know what they also have? They've brought back religion, the Russian Orthodox Church. They're the ones who are fighting trans and fighting all the woke joke crap. Oh, but there are enemies, don't you know? There are enemies. Well, we're going to see how it turns out for you all in New York, because you're screwed, baby. You're screwed. Let him go, man. Do it all. Do it all. Burn it to the ground. Do it again. You don't read history books. You obviously don't know anything. You're stupid. If you live in New York City, you're just dumb. And if you're not dumb, you're just stupid because you didn't go vote. You didn't go to vote for somebody else. You didn't make sure someone good was on the ballot. Right? You deserve what you got. It's going to be ugly. That's okay. Let's cut off the money. Let's see him do it without, let's see him confiscate everything from all the rich people and then see what happens. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. We're at war, folks. We got to fight it. And here's a good thing. I like this. This is important. And most of you are missing this. You're not even picking it up. It's really fundamental. I said we're about truth, right? We're about truth and merit. You can't survive. Western civilization is based on truth. You have to argue it out and come to a decision. What is true? What are you going to act on? What is the commies in Europe about? Censorship. No truth. Green New Scam. Trans is great. Bring in all the immigrants you can. And they're trying to censor us, and we're fighting back. EU warns of possible actions after U.S. bars 5 Europeans accused of censorship. Okay? Well, this is a good thing. European Union's executive branch has warned it would respond to any unjustified measures after the U.S. State Department barred 5 Europeans accused of pressuring American tech companies to censor or limit U.S. viewpoints. The European Commission, which supervises tech regulation in Europe, said it has requested clarification about the move, don't you know? The spokesperson for the Commission said it strongly condemns the U.S. decision, adding freedom of expression is a fundamental right in Europe and a shared core value with the U.S. across the democratic world. The Europeans, who were labeled as radical activists by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, includes EU commissioners responsible for supervising social media rules, Thierry Breton. Mr. Breton, a former French finance minister, engaged in social media dispute last year with tech billionaire Elon Musk over airing an online interview with Donald Trump in the months before his election. Oh, but that we believe in free speech, don't you know? But don't you show that Trump video on X so people in Europe could see it? Because we wouldn't want to have the truth, right? We want what the BBC did. We want them to edit Trump's videos to make it look like he called for a riot on January 6th, which is a total lie, and Trump just sued them for, I don't know, what was that, $16 billion? The Europeans are Iman Ahmed, chief executive of the Center for Countering Digital Hate, don't you know, Josephine Ballon and Anne-Lena Hahn Vonberg, leaders of the German organization Hate Aid, and Claire Melford, who runs the Global Disinformation Index. The Global Disinformation Index, don't you know? You know that index where only conservative thought is disinformation, but all their lies is okay? COVID lies are okay? Wuhan lab lies are okay, right? Yeah, that's all. We're disinformation. They're about free speech. Mr. Rubio said the 5 had advanced foreign government censorship campaigns against Americans and U.S. companies, creating a potential serious adverse foreign policy consequences. If needed, we will respond swiftly and decisively to defend our regulatory autonomy against these unjustified measures, the commissioner said in a statement, without elaborating. Our digital rules ensure a safe, fair, and level playing field for all companies, applied fairly and without discrimination. Total fricking bullcrap. Total bullcrap. What they're trying to do in the EU is implement draconian rules on X, Facebook, Instagram, any of these social media platforms that gives them, the government, back doors to every platform to spy on all of you, like what they're doing in Britain, where they're locking people up for putting out mean tweets, okay, putting them in prison against the Islamic rape groups that are raping young British girls. They're putting the Twitter people in jail, not the Islamic rapists. Okay? Got that? That's who these people are. We, Donald Trump, the U.S. government, needs to go to the mat. You cannot, because what they're trying to do is say, we're going to take away a whole marketplace from X and from Facebook and all these people to hurt you if you don't comply. We can never comply. We need to destroy them. I don't care if we have to cut all aid and all trade to every frickin' European country. This is the hill to die on. You need to be aware of this story because it's a critical thing. And I'm telling you, they're not going to win if we just do what we should do, if we just do what's right, if we just stay to our values and our principles. And so this story caught my attention because I think it's true. I told you last week, I'll tell you all year, 2026 is the year we win the war. You win the war by destroying your enemy's ability to fight, by taking their resources away, by taking their power away, by making the dem socialist commie sons of bitches go the way of the Whigs. Okay? Europe's going to have the same fate as people rise up in Britain. Farage has got to take back Britain, okay? In France, in Italy, in Germany, the AfD has got to win because this cannot stand. This cannot stand, and I don't think it will. The EU could be gone in 4 years. A revolutionary eruption is coming. I'll link to this article so you can read it. I'll just give you some highlights. In 1988, if you had told anyone that the Soviet Union would cease to exist just 4 years later, you would have been dismissed as a crank. The institution looked solid, the bureaucracy entrenched, and the power absolute. Yet in 1992, 4 years later, it was history. Today, European politicians in Brussels, Berlin, and Paris suffer from the same dangerous optimism. They believe they are so safely ensconced in their institutional frameworks that public anger can never truly throw them out of the saddle. But looking at the trajectory of the European Union, I believe we are closer to a revolutionary moment than the elites dare to imagine. I agree with that. By overextending ourselves financially and militarily in the Ukraine-Russia war, for a conflict we cannot sustain, European governments are delegitimizing themselves at home. You cannot demand that your citizens sacrifice their living standards for a war in the Donbass when you're worried about the cost of heating your home. This brings us to the second pillar of Europe's decline, the Soviet-style prioritization of ideology, not truth, over economic reality. Nowhere is this clearer than in our energy policy. For decades, we were promised that the green transition would trigger a new economic miracle. That was a total lie from the beginning. It was never intended to do that. It was intended to enslave people. That's what it's intended to do, and that's what it's doing. Olaf Scholz promised growth rates reminiscent of the 1950s. Instead, we have stagnation and contraction. We are shutting down blast furnaces and aluminum smelters in the name of saving the planet without our geopolitical rivals, while our geopolitical revivals like China, our rivals, expand theirs. To put it cynically, you can go green or you can go to war, but you can't do both. You cannot fight a war of attrition if you have deindustrialized your economy to satisfy our environmentalist religion that treats empirical evidence as heresy. No facts, no truth, ideology. It is complete madness. We have created a regulatory regime where saving a single salmon or protecting a nesting site takes precedence over national security and economic viability. It's madness. Then there is the cultural dimension. There is a fantasy in Washington and London that Germany can simply flick a switch and become a military power again. But you cannot spend 40 years teaching your youth that nationalism is evil, that patriotism is suspect, and that the military is bad, and then expect them to suddenly rush to the recruitment office. Good point, huh? Young German men are asking a very logical question. You want us to pay higher taxes to support a migration policy that imports young men from Syria who live on welfare, and then you want us to conscript us to fight a Russian tank in Eastern Europe. No way. The social contract is broken. The Green Party, once the pacifists, are now the loudest militarists, while the only people with actual military experience seem to be the AfD. It's total inversion of reality. People feel this disconnect. They feel it when they visit a Christmas market and see armed military guards next to mulled wine stand. They are told crime stats are fine, but the anxiety is real. A society where mundane activities require military protection is not a healthy society. This is why voters in Austria, the Netherlands, and increasingly Germany are looking where? Where are they looking? Towards Hungary and asking why the Hungarians don't have these problems, as we've said many, many times. If these grievances are not addressed, this system will break. The reason Hungary doesn't have these problems and Poland doesn't is because they said no to the madness. They don't let immigrants come in. They don't follow the Green New scam. They don't follow the woke joke. They resisted all the threats against them. Yeah, I think the EU is done, and none too soon. I hope it's this year, not 4 years from now. Let's see what happens. Okay, but we have our own problems, and you got to be aware of this. And I put this story out because it's a story that's always there, but you kind of know about it, but you don't really think about it. I want you to think about it. Trump must fight to defend the U.S. dollar globally as new threats emerge in 2026. 2026 will be the year when the U.S. dollar's delusion, the quiet erosion of its global dominance as countries trade and pay in alternatives, starts to build momentum. The more Washington uses the dollar as a weapon, the more the world builds ways to circumvent it. America's share of global trade has fallen from 1/3 in 2000 to 1/4 today in 25 years. As emerging economies trade more with each other, the dollar is less central to the flow of goods. Indian and Russians trade now settles in rupees, dirhams, and yuan. More than half of China's trade now moves through CHIPS, China's own cross-border payment system, instead of SWIFT, the global messaging network long dominated by Western banks. Other trading partners like Brazil, Argentina, UAE, India, Indonesia, Malaysia are also piloting local currency settlement systems. At the same time, central banks around the world are starting to accumulate currencies other than dollars as reserves. The dollar made up 72% of global reserves in 1999. Today, that's down to 58% and falling. Currency is safe only if it is perceived to be safe, but perception is shifting. Ballooning U.S. fiscal deficits projected at $1.9 trillion for 2025, together with a widening current account gap established at 6% of GDP, are adding pressures to the dollar. It's our government spending that's doing it. Okay? So that's the big picture. But what the hell does that mean? What does that mean to you? Why is it important that the dollar be the official currency of the world? It means a lot to you. There are projections that our value, your home value, the value of the dollars you have in your IRA would drop by 40% if the US dollar was not the world currency. But here's a little less dramatic example, and it's in this article. You can go to this article, and it's linked. Key impacts on everyday Americans if the US dollar falls. Higher borrowing costs. Mortgage rates, car loans, credit card, and student loans will likely rise as foreign demand for U.S. debt falls, making everything financed more expensive. More expensive imports and inflation. Everyday goods like electronics, clothing, oil, food imports, and consumer products would cost more due to a weaker dollar. Higher prices for travel and foreign goods. Vacations abroad, imported cars, appliances, and even some domestic items rely on global supply chains would become more expensive. Potential stock market and retirement effects. U.S. equities and 401ks could underperform if investor confidence drops and capital flows out instead of in. And broader economic pressure. The government would face tougher choices on deficit spending, possibly leading to tax hikes or cuts in programs with less ability to finance large budgets cheaply. So that would probably be a good thing. If they couldn't finance the debt by selling treasuries, which they're having trouble doing now, well, we'd either have to raise taxes, how's that going to go over, or cut programs. How about that? Why don't we cut programs before the dollar is no longer the world's currency instead of waiting for it to happen? That could be a message you could share with your congressman or senator. How about that? Okay. A few more stories here in the second half of the show. Mostly good, some not so good, but and then we'll wrap it up. All right. Author of LA Fire Department Palisades Fire Report declines to endorse the final version, calling it highly unprofessional. I bet you're stunned by that story. The author of Los Angeles Fire Department's After Action Report on the Palisades Fire declined to endorse it because of substantial deletions that altered his findings, calling the edited version, highly unprofessional and inconsistent with our established standards. Meaning they lied. Having Battalion Chief Kenneth Cook emailed then Interim Fire Chief Ronnie Valena and other LAFD officials with the subject line, the non-endorsement of this report. Having reviewed the revised version submitted by your office, I must respectfully decline to endorse it in its current form. The document has undergone substantial modifications and contains significant deletions and information that, in some instances, after the conclusions are originally presented. So they're deleted after the conclusions were presented to change the conclusion. He continued, while I fully understand the need to address potential liability concerns and to modify certain sections in consultation with the city's attorneys to mitigate litigation risk. Is that the reason for that? If you're a citizen of Los Angeles and they burned your frickin' home to the ground, do you want the report to limit the liability or to tell the truth? Well, you know what the people in charge want, right? The current version appears highly unprofessional and inconsistent with our established standards. I strongly urge you to reconsider publishing the report as it stands. What the hell is wrong with you people in California? Seriously, man. They burned your house to the ground. They won't even let you build it back. They did it on purpose, not just by their incompetence, by intent. You got a commie mayor. You got a commie governor, Newsom, who's laughably thinks he's ever going to be president of the United States. He's a clown show, okay? Wait till we open up the fraud on the homeless in California. Yeah, we'll see how that goes for Governor Newsom, right? Wake up, California. When are you going to start? The Trump people are going to come in and try to help with your voter rolls. How are you going to vote in 2026? Yeah, wake up. This is a really good story that I was happy to have and share with you. U.S. Navy's retired nuclear reactors from submarines could power AI data centers or 360,000 homes. So we've been talking about rising electric costs because of these AI data centers consume so much electricity. We're behind the curve on this. We're racing to do fusion and all kinds of other things. We're bringing nuclear reactors back online. But this was a really smart approach, and I want to share it with you. A power company in the United States is planning to make use of retired nuclear reactors from Navy aircraft carriers and submarines for a data center project proposed in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. This step by HP Intelligent Energy LLC is aimed at securing the massive amounts of energy for the artificial intelligence boom. For this, the company has approached the Energy Department. The move is expected to produce about 520 megawatts of around-the-clock electricity. This could be helpful to fill the power needs of almost 360,000 homes. The company argues that these reactors, which were originally designed to deliver reliable, long-lasting energy in demanding military environments, could be adapted to provide steady, carbon-free baseload electricity for data centers at a time when traditional grids are under strain. A small number of these reactors could collectively generate several hundred megawatts of power. U.S. aircraft carriers and submarines are equipped with two reactors, A4W units made by Westinghouse Electric or S8G class units made by General Electric. Rewiring two of them would cost about $1 million to $4 million per megawatt, a fraction of building a new reactor, according to the proposal. HEP's plans includes a revenue share with government, and the company would create a decommissioning fund, reported Bloomberg. Smart American ingenuity. Now, because it's the Trump administration, they better let them do it. Any other any other group would have never let them do it, right? That's the difference. That's how you make America great again, by doing smart things. This story is just for yucks and chucks for those of you who are as old as I am, because it's kind of historical. I'll bring back some historical. This is a great story. Why this happened, I don't even know. The best women's tennis player just lost to a barely ranked man in the battle of the sexes. Okay? The best female tennis player in the world just lost to a man who's been injured for years and is currently ranked close to the very bottom of the tennis ocean. World number one, Arnya Sablatka, lost to number 671, Nick Kyrgios, Kyrgios, in the Battle of the Sexes matches over the weekend in Dubai, proving once again that men have a distinct biological advantage over women in sports. The Battle of the Sexes match was a spin-off of the original, for you guys, older people, men and women, remember this, the 1973 battle between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs. King won that historic match and launched her campaign for equal pay for female tennis players. It was a scam. Bobby Riggs is an old man. And Billie Jean King was the number one women's player in the world. And they used that, folks, to launch the whole bull crap of women are the same as men and they could compete with men. It was a lie then. It took all these years to prove it again. It's still a lie. It's always been a lie. It's nothing about men and women. We're different. We're not the same. This proves it. Kyrgios had to face a smaller court. So get this. So they staged this. The number one women's player, the 671st ranked men's player who's been injured, he had to face a smaller court than his female opponent in an attempt to level the playing field. They rigged the freaking match. They had him playing on a tennis court where her side was smaller to make it harder so she could get to the ball. He couldn't hit it down the lanes. And she still lost 6-3, 6-3 in straight sets. Okay? Congratulations to Arnya Sablanka for embarrassing women's tennis, one fan said. A big L for men and women of the same crowd, added another. Embarrassing women's tennis? How about embarrassing yourselves for living the damn lie that women and men are equal in everything? You're a fool. Share that story. You'll get some chuckles. You'll get some people who remember Billie Jean King. Okay? I sent this video out, and it's a good one. And somebody sent it to me. One of our members sent it to me. And a lot of this content comes from our members, right? This is a great video. This changes everything for gun owners in 2026. It's only like a 13-minute video, but it talks about laws that happened that make gun owners safer. Doesn't take away your guns, allows you to keep them. It's a really good video. A powerful new court ruling which has just rewritten the rules for millions of gun owners. This isn't a proposal or a bill stuck in committee. It's a federal court decision that has already taken effect, bringing 10 massive changes to how gun laws are enforced across America. From stricter legal protections for self-defense to ending civil lawsuits to national concealed carry reciprocity, this ruling is the most important two-way development in a decade. If you carry, store, or keep firearms at home, these changes directly impact your rights starting now. In this video, we break down why strict scrutiny now applies to every gun law, how your protection from being sued after self-defense, and new limits on police powers and things like that. And I'll just run down the 10 things. Strict scrutiny is now the standard. Civil lawsuits shield for self-defense. They actually got rid of where there were people, gun owners, where someone attacked them. They shot them in self-defense, and the person that attacked them's family sued the person that defended themselves and won in California. That's gone. That's not legal now. Police can be now held personally accountable for taking your guns without cause. No more endless delays for carry permits. All these states who make it impossible, we have concealed carry. You just can't get a permit. That's gone. You can store your ammo and firearms however you choose. The hidden gun registry just got exposed and ordered to be destroyed. More ATF attacks over paperwork errors. No more paperwork errors. Remember, the gun shops were being attacked by the ATF because they didn't fire the paperwork properly on your gun. They took that out. Concealed carry now travels with you. Okay? It's just, you got to watch the video. It's 13 minutes, but if you have a gun, you got to celebrate this. This is good news that no one knows, because all the, quote, news people do is tell you the bad news. We try to share good news here, okay? So here's some more good news. This was a good story. Majority of parents want to see civil debate taught in high school. Many of you have been around long enough. You remember there was a thing called the debate club, right? My brother was on the debate club, the debate team. You would debate other schools. You would debate within your school. A majority of parents say it's important for high school students to learn civil debate skills, according to a new survey from EdChoice. The survey examined public opinion on several education-related issues, including school choice policies, technology use in K-12 education, and other things. It found 53% of Americans and 65% of school parents consider it very important for high school students to be taught civil debate and discourse skills. Respondents were more supportive of integrating debate skills into core subjects like math, English, and science, while only about 1 in 5 Americans and school parents favored making debate a required standalone course for graduation. Well, what is that about? Debate teaches you to argue on the facts, not on your feelings. You can't win a debate saying, it makes me feel bad that you said that. You lose. Goodbye. Yeah, bring back debate. It is a great American tradition. Why did we ever get rid of it? Oh, I know why. Because the lefties never wanted you to talk about facts. They want you to call you a racist, an Islamophobe, whatever, right? That's why all these lefty indoctrinated women are freaking out, killing themselves, depressed, not having kids, can't find a husband, because it's all about emotion, not about fact. Debate would bring back facts in a big way. All for it. Hey, here's an idea. How about talking to your local high school about doing that? Maybe? Huh? Maybe? All right. This is not in the good category, but it's important because we talk about the truth and facts. We have to be willing to face this. All right? So I posted this story, and it didn't get a lot of play, but maybe now you'll go read it. It is looking like resurgence in U.S. church attendance post-Kirk is not materializing. This is from Axios, which is a lefty group, but I did look at some of the facts, and I think it's factually correct. Despite anecdotal evidence after Charlie Kirk's assassination, the hope for a surge in church attendance, particularly among young males, is not happening. The U.S. is undergoing its fastest religious shift in modern history, marked by rapid increases in religious being unaffiliated and numerous church closures nationwide. The great unchurching of America comes as identity and reality are increasingly shaped by non-institutional spiritual sources. YouTube mystics, how's that for one? TikTok, tarot, digital skeptics, folk saints, and AI-generated prayer bots. Prayer bots. It's a tectonic transformation that has profound implications for race, civil identity, political persuasion, and the ability to govern a fractured moral landscape. Nearly 3 in 10 American adults today identify as religiously unaffiliated, a 33% jump since 2013, according to Nonpartisan Public Religion Research Institute. That's quicker than almost any major religious shift in modern U.S. history and is happening across racial groups, an Axios analysis found. About 4 in 10 Americans aged 18 to 29 identify as religiously unaffiliated, an increase from 32%. So it's 38% to 32%. The religious shift has made it harder for political parties and candidates to reach voters because it's costs less money to reach people in churches because they're all together and you can do it. And when you reach them when they're unaffiliated, it costs more money. Around 57% of Americans today seldom or never attend a religious service, a jump from 40% in the year 2000. That's up 17%. An unprecedented 15,000 churches are expected to shutter their doors this year in 2025. Far more than the few thousand expected to open, according to denominational reports and church consultants. Leading experts say that before the pandemic, a church should expect to lose about 15% of its members year over year, a rate of 1.2 million leaving churches annually nationally. That number has likely accelerated since then. Within the Republican Party, the largest group is white Christians, 68%, and only 12% identify as religiously unaffiliated. Among Democrats, Christians of color, 35%, and religious unaffiliated, 34%, make up the bulk of the party. It's almost equal, non-religious with religious. The shift in religious activity is also leaving behind a trail of church graveyards or empty buildings that are now difficult to sell or have been abandoned. These churches once served as community gathering places for Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, voter precincts, or town halls, and are leaving a void in our communities. That's troubling. That's on us. We talk about it every week. We will fulfill his mission by completing America's spiritual revival. That report says we have lots of work to do. We have lots of work to do. We need to bring our faith into this fight. We need to talk about your belief in something more than yourself on this 250th anniversary. We have to talk about how our Judeo-Christian values of merit and trust and telling the truth and hard work built the greatest country in the history of the world, gave us what we enjoy today. That's why you and I and we are going to work hard to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our country, to celebrate the religious mournings to our families, to our communities. We're going to talk about the things that church has accomplished, that our faith helped us to do, how we persevered in World War II because of our belief in God and our willingness to sacrifice for our fellow man. Not the selfishness of the left, not the selfishness of the collective, right? We got work to do. We got work to do. That should not affect your celebrations this year. It's just something you got to build into it. And so I'm going to wrap up the podcast. And again, your job, number one, is to tell other people about this podcast, to share our chapters player, to share the articles in it, and to send me information, articles, questions, requests at info@wethepeopleconvention.org, info@wethepeopleconvention.org. Send that to me. I want to read your emails. I want to reply. I want to know what you're doing for the 250th anniversary. I need you to give if you can give, because we're going to need money. We're going to need a lot of money this year to fight the fights we want to fight. And I appreciate those of you who have given for all the years. But if you can do it, if you get that, that check with a bigger tax return than you thought you were going to get, send some of it to wethepeopleconvention.org to help fund our efforts this year, because it's going to be a battle of all battles, and we will spend your money wisely, right? And then act. Act on the things I asked you to act on in this podcast. Start your plans for your 250th birthday celebration in your community. Start on that. Call your House and Senate members and demand they cut $1 trillion of stolen money. Every dollar that's been stolen needs to be brought back and needs to be cut from the ongoing budget. Stop lying to us. You're just stealing us blind. You need to have that conversation with your House and Senate members and with your state members. What are they doing to investigate the money being stolen in your city, in your town? Because remember, you're a government employee. You maybe came out of college, never worked in business. Some of them are even just high school graduates, never had the business. Don't understand that you got to treat the money you're dealing with as if it's yours, or you'll go out of business. Well, you never go out of business in government, do you? The money just shows up. Shazam! And what is your job? To shovel it out the door with no regard for where it came from, because you get patted on the back. You're helping these people. No, you're not. You're not helping anyone. You're hurting us. You're hurting your grandparents, your brothers and sisters, your family, the other people in your community. They don't know this. You need to talk to everyone you know in government and ask them, do you understand what your job is? It is not to just give our money out to anyone who asks for it. It is to protect it so that we don't have to keep giving you more. Quit stealing our money. Have that conversation with people who just work. You know, the people who work in your county, in your state, in your city. They got a job with the government. Have a conversation with them this holiday. Still some days left, believe it or not. It's only Saturday. Holiday's not over yet. Bring it up, okay? Bring it up. That's how we fix this. That's how we make America great again. We need to change the culture of government, which is totally corrupt, and they need to see their role in it as corrupt. If they are not saying, no, I need to make sure you qualify. I need to make sure you're spending this money wisely. I need to make sure you have the number of children you have. I need to understand you're not a scammer, or you don't get a dime from us. That's what their job is. You need to make that clear to them. Okay? All right. We're going to wrap up the podcast. I know many of you were very much affected by my asking you for prayers last week because something very big might happen. I know some of you speculated that I might be running for office. I don't think that's the case, though that could be God's plan, but I don't think so. Okay? But it hasn't happened yet. I think there's a good chance it'll happen. And if it does happen, it will give us an impact that we've never been in a position to have ever before. And so keep praying. Keep praying. I'm praying. I really hope this happens. I'm excited about it. I can see it. I just can see it clear as day. We'll see if that's God's plan. Keep praying. I'd really appreciate it. Until next week, enjoy the rest of the holiday. Happy New Year. Happy birthday, America. Enjoy the time with your family and friends. And then let's get back to work and let's fight the fight and let's win the war in 2026. Okay? That's our goal, to win the war, not to hold on. We ain't holding on to nothing. Like General Patton used to say, we ain't holding any ground, we're taking ground. That's what we're going to do. We're going to take all the ground in 2026. Get ready, get rested up, and then come to fight, come to the battle. Okay? We'll see you next week. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Weekly Podcast, and my name is Tom Zawistowski. May God continue to bless you, and may God continue to bless our great country. See you next week.